All right, I'm back with Secret Footage Part 2, the unlisted YouTube town hall that Andy Cohen and SiriusXM doesn't want you to see unless they are controlling it. I'm going to go into the second video, which is about it says trying to be too politically correct. Oh, this should be interesting. Let's see. Let me share the screen with you so that you can see that. And while you're waiting for that to come up, my name is Megan Fox, and I write for pjmedia.com. And you can find my columns there on a daily basis. I do a lot of things, political writing, but also reviewing of entertainment and culture. So here we go. And just like that, trying too hard to be politically correct. Again, another unlisted video. For some reason, I'm not sure why this is happening and why they're doing it like this, but these are unsearchable on YouTube. But let's start again and again, because this is video. I'm going to have to stop it very frequently so that I don't get strike over it. So if you want to see the uninterrupted interview, I will drop the link in the description.
You know, the show premiered. Meghan McCain came out with a column saying that the show was too PC. It was trying to do too much at once. Cynthia, what's your reaction to that?
What's my reaction?
Yeah.
Oh, aren't you just going to love to hear this? Here we go. What's your reaction that it's too politically correct?
I mean, I disagree. I mean, I feel like the show, the show became so beloved, right? And then now in reruns for all of these years, I mean, you said 15 years. I have a very keen meter of how long this show has been on.
I'm just stopping here. I want to hear what she has to say, but I have to stop so I don't get a strike. I have nothing really to add to that. I'm just stopping for a second. Okay.
Because when my oldest child was 8 months old, we did the pilot. My oldest child is going to be 26 this year. So it's a long time. And I feel like people have watched it and they know it so well, inside and out. And when you know something that's so familiar, it becomes tame. But I think...
Okay, it's so familiar it becomes tame? I don't know, but check out... That's silly. Okay, she's not addressing the politically correct question, is she? Nicole Ari just looks completely bored. She's down here in the corner, and she just looks totally bored. Why is she not addressing the question? Now she's talking about timelines. The question is, are you trying too hard to be woke? And you're not answering the question, and you're also wearing a hideous jacket that's giving me a headache. What is that? It's like a lame flower thing with a neon t-shirt underneath. It's awful. Good God.
That people forget how incendiary the show was, and how not just only because of the sexual frankness and the conversations.
Incendiary. No, I wouldn't call it that. It really didn't light the world on fire as far as that goes. There were no protests. It wasn't that big a deal. I mean, yes, there were conversations. I wouldn't have called it incendiary. Girls was far more incendiary than Sex in the City. Far more. And especially because it was on cable. And back then, not a lot of people had cable. HBO was not something that most people had. Most people had to wait for the TV version. And then that was really sanitized. So there really wasn't a big outcry like they're trying to say there was. There was some conversation. And like I've said before, most of the criticism was about portraying women who are so promiscuous. It was just kind of, but it was over the top. And I think most people understood that it was a show. It wasn't trying to portray reality. It was trying to tell a story and do it with these very colorful characters. Mad TV did some hilarious parodies, which I should pull up and and review with you guys because they're hilarious. But no, there wasn't. Everyone knows what you're getting with HBO. Back then, HBO and Cinemax, there was the joke that they called it Skinemax because it was mostly just like softcore porn at night. And so people who had cable knew what they were signing up for. There wasn't a whole huge outcry that I remember.
The scenes of sex, but how revolutionary this was to show back in the day for women having a lot of sex with a lot of different partners who were, marriage was kind of,
Okay, so if that was so revolutionary, what are they doing now that's revolutionary? Grossing us out? Now they're just grossing us out? Like, at least back then, the women having sex on camera were pretty, and so were the men. Like like, at least it didn't gross us out. Like, it some of it did. Okay, there was some of it that grossed us out. Like, I can think of a few episodes where I would rather not have seen that. Miranda specifically had some partners who were just so silly and so over the top stuff. You were like, I didn't need to see that. But at least there was comedic value in it. So we were laughing because it was supposed to be absurd. Now they're just doing their darndest to just gross us the heck out. We're just grossed out all the time.
So out there in the ether, but not necessarily something they were pursuing or even, had made up their minds about. And I think, I remember so well the initial, chatter about the show, the first at least couple seasons, saying these were not really women. Women don't really have sex like this. Women don't really talk like this. These are not women. These are gay men in drag,
Yeah, people did say that because, I mean, I think mostly it was just Samantha. I think mostly people were saying Samantha acts like a gay man, with a gay, more like a gay lifestyle sort of thing going on with her, because not a ton of women were that promiscuous. I mean, not that I knew. I didn't know that many who were like racking up the kind of numbers that Samantha was racking up. But again, I recognized at the time, and still to this day do, that it was supposed to be, just fantasy. It wasn't supposed to be reality. And yet, so there was some criticism, but I don't think the criticism was aimed at all of them. And I don't think that anyone was like, women don't talk like this. Yeah, they did. Yeah, yes, we did. We talked like that all the time. That's exactly the kind of stuff women would talk about. So that criticism is wrong, and she still hasn't answered the question.
And I think that it's the show has, because people know it so well, they've sort of enshrined it in nostalgia, but this is a show that has always pushed every kind of boundary. And
And now it's pushing the terrible entertainment boundary. It's pushing the how bad can we turn you off boundary. The boundaries no show has ever dared to go before. How many audience members can we lose? That's quite a boundary that you're going after there, Cynthia.
I think that that's what's so magnificent about the new show.
Oh, it's magnificent. How many people can we piss off? How magnificent. Boy, they really never get tired of kissing their own asses, do they? They're just patting themselves on the back. We are magnificent.
How many different directions we're going in that, and
we went in so many different directions that we introduced like 20 different stories that we never took anywhere. That's how many different directions we went in.
And pushing boundaries and shaking people up, and
we pushed so many boundaries and shook you up so bad you wanted to vomit.
I think most importantly, shaking the characters up, because we don't want to see these characters, either the familiar ones or the newly introduced ones. We don't want to see them comfortable. We want to see them out of their comfort zones.
You do, but did you ask the audience if that's what they wanted? Who is she talking about when she says we? Because maybe we would want to see them out of their comfort zones, but would we want to see them constantly humiliated, uncomfortable, and vomiting and pissing on themselves or on other people? Really? That's what they thought we wanted. Again, she still hasn't answered the question about, is it trying too hard to be politically correct? None of this stuff she is talking about has answered that question. Have you noticed that?
Right.
I think
Can I say something? I have something.
Yes, please do say something.
Oh, go Nicole.
I was just going to say that comments like that always seem more about the person saying them.
Yeah,
Totally.
What's
Totally.
too much,
What's too much? I'll tell you what's too much. Handing out black friends like Oprah hands out cars. You get a black friend, and you get a black friend, and you get a black friend, to quote Mike Harlow. That's too much. It's forced wokeness. It was insulting. It's insulting to treat your black actors on the show like token characters that have to be introduced in order to fill a diversity checkbox. That's insulting. It's kind of racist and it's cringe. You know what else is too much? Making Charlotte, a woman who lived in New York and ran an art gallery for her whole life, act like a total asshole, running around trying to get black people to come to her party as if she's never interacted with black people before in her life. That's too much. And it's the wrong kind of woke. If you're trying to be like, oh my God, it was so forced, so unnatural. It is too much. Okay? It's too much.
No, it's, I mean, maybe in your living room or when you step outside, it looks the same as inside, and you go to the grocery store and it's the same. And maybe it is too much for you, but for these characters in New York City, it's not.
What? No. Okay. Oh, this is so upsetting. No one complained about there being diversity on the show. No one is saying there shouldn't be new characters who are of different minorities or whatever. It's the way it was done and the way they are still treating this like a diversity checkbox checklist. And her saying that we are the problem because when we go to the grocery store, it all looks the same. First of all, lady, you don't know where we live and you don't know who we live with. I grew up near Chicago. I lived in the city of Chicago. I lived in a predominantly black neighborhood in Rogers Park. Um, I have lived with diversity my entire life. I went to a mixed church that was half and half. Black and actually whites were in the minority because it was mostly black and Hispanic. There is no I hate this being insulted about how we don't see we're not ready for it. Like we are some kind of um oh my God. I can't even explain what I'm feeling right now. It's so insulting to say that to people. Ugh. This society has been integrated for decades. And they are treating us like we have never seen black people before, and that somehow that's uncomfortable for us. That is not where the discomfort comes in. That is not it. The discomfort comes from the fact that you are forcing this into a show that did not need it, that already had so many diverse characters, so many diverse storylines, gay characters, people in drag. There were tons of minority characters in Sex and the City. No, they weren't the main characters. Big freaking deal. And you could have introduced those characters into this new series without doing what they did, which is give each character their own token minority. In fact, I would say that LTW made the most sense to be the new character if they wanted to make one, because she and Charlotte had the most organic relationship that didn't seem forced. They're both, their kids go to the same school and they have the same kind of lifestyle and background, and it made sense that they would be friends. Anthony at one point calls LTW Black Charlotte, which was funny and true. Like they were very similar. And I don't think we needed to see the Charlotte becomes an asshole to impress her storyline. That's what made everybody mad. Nobody believed that Charlotte was that uncomfortable around black people like she had never seen them before. And they are treating us like we are that way. Damn. These people make me mad.
That's a really good answer.
It is a good answer. Can I say something else, Andy?
Yeah.
I hadn't really thought this through because, like we're in it. Obviously, we all care, so much about our show and our characters and what we're going to do. And I hadn't really thought about this till it was over. But if you think about it, we took our characters, we put them in a different show with a different name.
I hate when they keep saying this. We put them in a different show with a different name, as if that somehow makes it okay to like lobotomize the characters that we all came to know and love.
Brought in new people, and we changed the characters somewhat. Obviously, my character not changing that much, but I can't think of another situation where someone has done that with the show. Like you see,
yeah, you know why? Because it's a big fat flop failure. That's why. It's a terrible idea, and I hope no one ever does it again. If you want to make a new show, make a new show. Create an all-black cast if you want of something else. Don't take a show everyone knows or an all-Indian cast or mix it up however you want. Create a whole new show with whole new characters that we don't already know. And then at least she admits here that they changed the characters, I mean, if you don't think there's enough diversity on television, well, then make a diverse show the way you see it, Michael Patrick King, the way you wanted it. But you don't take a show that was geared towards a demographic and then completely switch it around and change the characters and give them lobotomies and expect everyone to be like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Because it doesn't make sense. And it isn't because they're introducing characters who are minorities. It's because they lobotomized the characters we knew and then forced in, it seemed like they were checking off the diversity bingo card to try and, meet these quotas that they had to satisfy the woke police, which is Cynthia Nixon.
Reboots with new casts, or you
I can't
see
either.
like the same thing or whatever. But
Yeah.
I hadn't really realized how much we were different. And I think people don't really know how to think about it. And I think Cynthia was right when she said, don't think about it as the old show. That will free you
Right.
to experience it. And also, I did.
Wait, don't think about it as the old show, and that will free you to experience it for what it is. How could we do that? How can you forget the entire history of the show that you already saw? We're supposed to forget that Miranda was a no-nonsense lawyer who made pros and cons lists before making any decisions. We're supposed to forget that part of her personality? Just totally forget it. Throw it out the window. She's somebody else now. Come on. That's insane.
Didn't really understand, and I give all of our writers and Sarah Jessica and Michael for coming up with the idea in the first place so much credit, because it gives so much
Interesting. She just gave Sarah Jessica Parker the credit for coming up with that.
possibility, and we are living in a different time, and it brings all of that in a way that I found very organic, because the three.
Yeah, I hate this time. I wish we were back in 1986 when America was truly integrated and nobody talked about anything like this. And like the most popular show on television was The Cosby Show. And every white family in America gathered around the television to watch that show. And nobody thought it was strange. And nobody talked about, it being, oh, such a, it's so good for diversity. No, we just loved it because it was great entertainment. And there were so many shows like that. Like, how about the spinoff that came from The Cosby Show? Remember the one with Denise, something world, a different world? Oh my God, I loved that show. The Jeffersons, so many great shows back then. And nobody was thinking about race. Absolutely no one. I remember because I lived through it. It was a much better time. And like people were just like totally accepting, totally fine with everything. Like, no. And in fact, I remember watching Mr. Rogers. I loved Mr. Rogers when I was a kid. I remember watching Mr. Rogers, and he would have like football players on. In fact, there was this one, and I can't remember his name now. I'm going to totally forget it. But he was, he did a ballet segment because he did ballet to keep limber for football. He was a big football star, and Reading Rainbow, with the guy who played Geordie LaForge on Star Trek. We had great characters who were of all different backgrounds. Okay, we had great characters in the 80s and on television and good representation. It's baloney that there was no representation. I'm so sick of this idea that we had no representation on television at all. That makes no sense. And now that's all we do is talk about it. It's all we do is talk about the lack of diversity on television when that really is not the case. Now, if you can make the case that there wasn't enough and that you wanted more, and that's great because we have all kinds of new entertainment channels that like these shows that come out that have all black casts that are, people like Empire and whatever. It didn't appeal to me, that particular show, but that's great. Fine. But to pretend like we never had it or we didn't, that really bothers me when great shows, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Family Matters, great shows. What was the other one? Benson. Remember Benson? Oh my gosh. So many great shows that featured black families, etc. We had tons of them. And nobody ever talked about it being weird or I can't even explain it. Maybe some of you can explain it in the comments what I'm feeling, because I feel very much every day like We have been taken out of, like CERN. Maybe CERN worked and we were thrown into a different timeline where like the Mandela effect, only some of us remember when television was like super diverse and no one talked about it like it was any big deal because it was just the way it was. And and now we just have to talk about it all the time as if the Civil Rights Act just passed 5 years ago. What is happening?
3 of us are still there, struggling, as you see, to, roll with what's happening.
Why are you struggling? Why are they struggling with what's happening? What is happening? I think I've hit on it. We are in a different timeline. My viewers, you guys who are watching my channel, all of us have been thrown into a different universe, and these people live in in a universe where the civil rights movement just happened five years ago, and they are all struggling to adapt to integration. And the rest of us went through that. Like, the rest of us weren't even born in a time when there was segregation, and so we have no clue why they're doing what they're doing, because the whole time we've been alive, there's been no segregation. Those of us in the Gen X community, the Gen X generation, we have always been integrated. Our friends were all different colors growing up. If you lived near a city, your friends were all different colors. Now, people who live out in the country, sure, there's more like this country is in the 90s percentile white. So of course, there are going to be large pockets of just white people because that's how we have a lot of white people in this country. But if you live anywhere near a city, you're going to have friends of all different colors, and we grew up with that. So we don't understand this mentality that they are now just now going through, not understanding that the world is full of people of different colors. And the rest of us are like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
I hadn't really realized that. I can't think of another show that's done that. So when I tell myself that, it makes me understand the comments better.
I mean, it's different. It's different, obviously, but the only kind of thing in my mind that when I was trying, before we did the show, when I was trying to imagine it, was taking Ed Asner's character off the Mary Tyler Moore Show and
Lou
creating
Grant.
Lou Grant, right? Which was like, take this beloved character from the half-hour comedy, put him in an hour-long drama, but he's still the same person.
What? I gotta hear that again. We've just discovered the entire thing. This was all Cynthia Nixon's idea. You know how people have been saying that it seems like they were, who's the guy that fell asleep for 100 years or 400 years? Rip Van Winkle. How they were behaving like Rip Van Winkle, like they had been asleep forever. She literally, that was her idea. Listen to this again.
Character from the half-hour comedy, put him in an hour-long drama.
Wait,
but
I gotta
he's
back
the
up
Mary
even
Tyler
further.
Moore Show was taking Ed Asner's character off the Mary Tyler Moore Show and
Lou
creating
Grant.
Lou Grant, right? Which was like
taking Ed Asner off the Mary Tyler Moore Show and making him Lou Grant. But those were two different characters, weren't they? Did you see Karen Pittman go, huh? Let's watch that again. She goes, huh? She's surprised. Like, she never heard this before. Listen.
And
Karen Pittman has never heard this before. And Karen's like, what? Let's watch that again.
My mind that when I was trying, before we did the show, when I was trying to imagine it, was taking Ed Asner's character off the Mary Tyler Moore Show and
Lou
creating
Grant.
Lou Grant, right? Which was like, take this beloved character from the half-hour comedy.
Let's take a beloved character and ruin it.
Put him in an hour-long drama, but he's still the same person, but the world around him is different.
He's the same person and the world around him is different. It is. So they went with the Rip Van Winkle angle. That's what they did. I am reeling from this. I am shooketh. I cannot believe what I just heard. Can you? I'm dying to hear what you have to say about this. So I'm going to shut up right now and get the hell out of here and let you guys see this, because I can't even believe it. I'm like and subscribe.